Today, we're going to decode an entire artistic style that was basically designed as a book for people who couldn't read. Yep, we're traveling back to the Middle Ages to really understand Romanesque art, a true story literally carved in stone. Okay, let's get right into it.
So just imagine for a second that you live in a world where almost nobody knows how to read. How do you share these huge, complex stories, your deepest values, and some pretty serious warnings from your faith? That's the exact problem, the fundamental question that Romanesque art was born to solve.
To really get this art, you first have to understand the world it came from. We're stepping into medieval Europe, and this was a time and place where life didn't just include religion. No, it completely revolved around it.
We're zeroing in on this period right here, from about the 11th to the 13th centuries. This is the sweet spot when the Romanesque style just exploded across Europe. And what's amazing is how it created this single artistic language that everyone could understand, spread by monks and pilgrims traveling these long, crisscrossing routes all over the continent. You have to understand, in this era, faith was the absolute center of everything. I mean, everything. And that's why pretty much all the art being made had a religious purpose. The great masterpieces of the day, they weren't fancy palaces for kings. They were massive churches and monasteries built for God. All right. Let's start our tour on the outside of a Romanesque church. Just look at it. Its appearance is no accident. These buildings are basically fortresses, but they weren't built to protect your body. They were designed as fortresses for the soul. Now, what's so brilliant about these features is that they all served a dual purpose. You see those super thick walls and tiny windows? Yeah, they held up the heavy stone roof, for sure, but they also created this dark, quiet, contemplative space inside. A world totally separate from the chaos outside. Everything about the design was meant to scream solidity and permanence. And this right here, this is the shape that defines a whole style. The round-headed arch. A perfect semicircle. It's so simple, but it's incredibly strong and stable. You'll see it absolutely everywhere, in the doorways, the windows, holding up the entire ceiling. It really is the cornerstone of their whole engineering philosophy. So if that round arch is the basic building block, then the barrel vault is its masterpiece. It's basically one of those arches stretched out, creating a massive, heavy stone ceiling. This was a genius move because it made the buildings fire-resistant, which was a huge deal back then, and it gave you that feeling of being inside a safe, protective, almost cave-like space. So the main point is this. Romanesque architecture wasn't just about building a structure. It was about building a feeling. The feeling of safety, of security, of being protected. The church was the community's refuge, in both a physical and a spiritual sense. Okay, so we've seen how the structure felt. Now let's move on to the message. We're about to see how those very same stones started to speak, telling stories directly to anyone who just looked up. Now, the most important thing to get about Romanesque sculpture is that it's not trying to look real. That's not the point at all. Its only job, its only function is to be clear. It's a teaching tool. Every single figure, every scene you see carved into the doorways or on the tops of columns is a Bible lesson for people who couldn't pick up a book and read it for themselves. And if the stones were speaking on the outside, well, the inside walls were practically shouting with color. Painting was the other key medium for filling the church's interior with these really vibrant, powerful messages. And you'll see a pattern here. Just like the sculpture, Romanesque painting was not aiming for realism. It uses these flat, super intense colors to just grab your attention. The figures are simple, they're often facing you head-on, with these enormous staring eyes that feel like they're looking right into your soul. The goal is exactly the same. Make the message direct and totally unforgettable. And this table just lays it out perfectly. Look at the DNA here. It's the same for both sculpture and painting. What's the main function? To teach. What's the style? Schematic, not realistic. And what's the ultimate focus for both? Absolute clarity of the message. They're basically two different languages telling the exact same story. So, after our whole journey, what's the big takeaway? We've finally arrived at the very heart of what Romanesque art is all about. And here it is. It's so simple, but it's so profound. Romanesque art was not decoration. It was communication. It was a visual Bible. A storybook carved in stone and painted on walls so that every single person, no matter their education, could understand the message. So I'll leave you with a question to think about.
If Romanesque churches were designed from the ground up to communicate strength and faith, what do our buildings today communicate? What do those glass skyscrapers or wild-looking museums or massive government buildings say to us? What messages, whether they're intentional or not, are the structures all around us sending every single day? It's something to think about.